Chapter 17. It takes the average human 7 minutes to go to sleep, but according to Hand's Human Physiology, it takes the same average human 15 to 20 minutes to wake up. It is as if sleep is a pool from which emerging is more difficult than entering. When the sleeper wakes, he or she comes up by degrees, from deep sleep to light sleep to what is sometimes called waking sleep, a state in which the sleeper can hear sounds and even respond to questions without being aware of it later, except perhaps as fragments of dream. Lewis heard the click and rattle of bones, but gradually this sound became sharper, more metallic. There was a bang, a yell, more metallic sounds. Something rolling? Sure, his drifting mind agreed. Rolled in bones. He heard his daughter calling, "Get it, Gage! Go get it!" This was following by Gage's crow of delight, the sound to which Lewis opened his eyes and saw the ceiling of his own bedroom. He held himself pretty still, waiting for the reality, the good reality, the blessed reality, to come home all the way. All a dream, no matter how terrible, how real, it had all been a dream, only a fossil in the mind under his mind. The metallic sound came again. It was one of Gage's toy cars being rolled along the upstairs hall. "Get it, Gage!" "Get it," Gage yelled. "Get it, get it, get it." Thumpa, thumpa, thumpa. Gage's small bare feet thundering along the hallway runner. He and Ellie were giggling. Lewis looked to his right. Rachel's bed was empty, the covers thrown back. The sun was well up. He glanced at his watch and saw it was nearly 8 o'clock. Rachel had let him oversleep, probably on purpose. Ordinarily, this would have irritated him, but this morning it did not. He drew in a deep breath and let it out, content for the moment to lie there with a bear of sunlight slanting in through the window, feeling the unmistakable texture of the real world. Dust motes danced in the sunlight. Rachel called upstairs, "Better come down and get your snack and get out for the bus, Elle." "Okay." The louder clack-clack of her feet. "Here's your car, Gage. I gotta go to school." Gage began to yell indigently. Although it was garbled, the only clear words being Gage, car, Gidget, and Ellie bus. His text seemed clear enough. Ellie should stay. Public education could go hang for the day. Rachel's voice again. "Give your dad a shake before you come down, Elle." Ellie came in, her hair done up in a ponytail, wearing her red dress. "I'm awake, babe," he said. "Go on and get your bus." "Okay, Daddy." She came over, kissed his slightly scruffed cheek and bolted for the stairs. The dream was beginning to fade, to lose its coherence. A damn good thing, too. "Gage," he yelled, "come give your dad a kiss." Gage ignored this. He was following Ellie downstairs as rapidly as he could, yelling, "Giddy, giddy, 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 giddy," at the top of his lungs. Louis caught just a glimpse of his sturdy little kid's body, clad only in diapers and rubber pants. Rachel called up again. "Louis, was that you? You awake?" "Yeah," he said, sitting up. "Told you he was," Ellie called. "I'm going. Bye." The slam of the front door and Gage's outraged bellow punctuated this. "1 egg or 2?" Rachel called. Louis pushed back the blankets and swung his feet out onto the nubs of the hooked rug, ready to tell her he'd skip the eggs, just a bowl of cereal, and he'd run. And the words died in his throat. His feet were filthy with dirt and pine needles. His heart leapt up in his throat like a crazy jack-in-the-box, moving fast, eyes bulging, teeth clamped unfeelingly on his tongue. He kicked the covers all the way back. The foot of his bed was littered with needles. The sheets were murky and dirty. "Louis?" He saw a few errant pine needles on his knees, and suddenly he looked at his right arm. There was a scratch there on his bicep, a fresh scratch, exactly where the dead branch had poked him in the dream. "I'm gonna scream. I can feel it." And he could, too. It was roaring up from inside, nothing but a big, cold bullet of fear. Reality shimmered. Reality, the real reality, he thought, was those needles, the filth on his sheets, the bloody scratch on his bare arm. "I'm gonna scream, and then I'll go crazy, and I won't have to worry about it anymore." "Louis?" Rachel was coming up the stairs. "Louis, did you go back to sleep?" He grappled for himself in those 2 or 3 seconds. He fought grimly for himself, just as he had done in those moments of roaring confusion after Pascal had been brought into the medical center, dying in a blanket. He won. The thought which tipped the scales was that she must not see him this way. His feet muddy and coated with needles, the blanket tossed back onto the floor to reveal the muck-splashed ground sheet. "I'm awake," he said cheerfully. His tongue was bleeding from the sudden, involuntary bite he had given it. His mind swirling, and somewhere deep inside, away from the action, he wondered if he had always been within touching distance of such mad irrationalities, if everyone was. 1 egg or 2? She had stopped on the 2nd or 3rd riser. Thank God. 2, he said, barely awake of what he was saying. Scrambled. Good for you, she said, and went back downstairs again. He closed his eyes briefly in relief, but in the darkness he saw Pascal's silver eyes. His eyes flew open again. Louis began to move rapidly, putting off any further thought. He jerked the bedclothes off his bed. The blankets were okay. He separated out the 2 sheets, balled them up, took them into the hallway, and dumped them down the laundry chute. Almost running, he entered the bathroom, jerked the shower handle on, and stepped under water so hot it was nearly scalding, unmindful. He washed the dirt from his feet and legs. He began to feel better, more in control. Drying off, it struck him that this was how murderers must feel when they believe they have gotten rid of all the evidence. He began to laugh. He went on drying himself, but he also went on laughing. He couldn't seem to stop. "Hey, up there!" Rachel called. "What's so funny?" "Private joke," Louis called back, still laughing. He was frightened, but the fright didn't stop the laughter. The laughter came rising from a belly that was as hard as stones, mortared into a wall. It occurred to him that shoving his sheets down the laundry chute was absolutely the best thing he could have done. Missy Dandridge came in 5 days a week to vacuum, clean, and do the laundry. Rachel would never see those sheets at all until she put them back on his bed, clean. He supposed it was possible that Missy would mention it to Rachel, but he didn't think so. She would probably whisper to her husband that the Creeds were playing some strange sex game that involved mud and pine needles instead of body paints. This thought made Louis laugh all the harder. The last of the giggles and chuckles dried up as he was dressing, and he realized that he felt a little better. How he could be, he didn't know. But he did. The room looked normal now, except for his stripped bed. He had gotten rid of the poison. Maybe evidence was actually the word he was looking for. But in his mind, it felt like poison. Perhaps this is what people do with the inexplicable, he thought. This is what they do with the irrational that refuses to be broken down into the normal causes and effects that run the Western world. Maybe this was how your mind coped with the flying saucer you saw hovering silently over your backyard. One morning, casting its own tight little pool of shadow, the rain of frogs, the hand under the bed that stroked your bare foot in the dead of night. There was a giggling fit or a crying fit, and since it was its own invaluable self and would not break down, you simply passed terror intact like a kidney stone. Gage was in his chair eating 𝘠𝘕𝘤𝘠 and decorated the table with it. He was decorating the plastic mat under his high chair with 𝘠𝘕𝘠s and apparently shampooing with it. Rachel came out of the kitchen with his eggs and a cup of coffee. "What was the big joke, Lou? You were laughing like a loon up there. Scared me a little." Louis opened his mouth with no idea of what he was going to say. and what came out was a joke he had heard the week before at the corner market down the road. Something about a Jewish tailor who brought a parrot whose only line was, "Ariel Sharon jerks off." By the time he finished, Rachel was laughing too. So was Gage, for that matter. "Fine. Our hero has taken care of all the evidence, to wit, the muddy sheets and the loony laughter in the bathroom. Our hero will now read the morning paper, or at least look at it, putting the seal of normality on the morning." So thinking, Lewis opened the paper. "That's what you do, all right," he thought with an immeasurable relief. "You pass it like a stone, and that's the end of it. Unless there comes a campfire some night with friends when the wind is high and the talk turns to inexplicable events. Because on campfire nights, when the wind is high, talk is cheap." He ate his eggs. He kissed Rachel and Gage. He glanced at the square, white-painted laundry cabinet at the foot of the chute only as he left. Everything was okay. It was another knockout of a morning. Late summer showed every sign of just going on forever, and everything was okay. He glanced at the path as he backed the car out of the garage. But that was okay too. Never turned a hair. You passed it like a stone. Everything was okay until he had gotten 10 miles down the road, and then the shakes hit him so hard that he had to pull off Route 2 and into the morning deserted parking lot of Sing's, the Chinese restaurant not far from the Eastern Maine Medical Center, where Pascal's body would have been taken. The EMMC, that is, not Sing's. Vic Pascal was never going to eat another helping of mangogoy pan, haha. The sheiks twisted his body, ripped at it, had their way with it. Lewis felt helpless and terrified. Not terrified of anything supernatural, not in this bright sunshine, but simply terrified of the possibility that he might be losing his mind. It felt as if a long, invisible wire was being twirled through his head. "No more," he said. "Please, no more." He fumbled for the radio and got Joan Baez singing about diamonds and rust. Her sweet, cool voice soothed him, and by the time she had finished, Lewis felt that he could drive on. When he got to the medical center, he called hello to Charlton and then ducked into the bathroom, believing that he must look like hell. Not so. He was a little hollow under the eyes, but not even Rachel had noticed that. He slapped some cold water on his face, dried off, combed his hair, and went into his office. Stephen Masterton and the Indian doctor, 𝘠𝘕𝘓𝘓 were in there, drinking coffee and continuing to go over the front file. "Morning, Lou," Steve said. "Morning." "Let's hope it is not like the last morning," 𝘠𝘓 said. "That's right. You missed all the excitement." "Surrender had plenty of excitement himself last night." Masterton said, grinning.
Tell him, 𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠.
𝘠𝘵𝘠 polished his glasses, smiling.
2 boys bring in their lady friend around 1 o'clock in the morning,
he said.
She is very happily drunk, celebrating the return to the university, you understand. She has cut 1 thigh quite badly, and I tell her it will be at least 4 stitches, no scar. Stitch away, she tells me. And so I do, bending over like this.
𝘠𝘵𝘠 demonstrated, salamying over an invisible thigh. Louis began to grin, sensing what was coming.
And as I am suturing, she vomits on my head.
Masterton broke up. So did Louis. 𝘠𝘵𝘠 smiled calmly, as if this had happened to him thousands of times in thousands of lives.
𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠, how long have you been on duty?
Louis asked, when the laughter died.
Since midnight,
𝘠𝘠𝘠 said.
I am just leaving, but I wanted to stay long enough to say hello again. Well, hello,
Louis said, shaking his small brown hand.
Now go home and get some sleep. We're almost through with the front file,
Masterton said.
Say hallelujah, 𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠.
I decline, 𝘠𝘠𝘠 said, smiling.
I am not Christian. Then sing the chorus of Instant Karma or something.
Maybe you both shine on, 𝘠𝘠𝘠 said, still smiling, and glided out the door. Louis and Steve Masterton looked after him for a moment, silent, and then looked at each other. They broke out laughing. To Louis, no laugh had ever felt so good, so normal.
Just as well we got the file finished up,
Louis said.
Today's the day we put the welcome mat out for the dupe pushers.
Louis nodded. The first of the drug salesmen would begin arriving at 10. As Steve liked to crack, Wednesday might be Prince Spaghetti Day, but at UMO, every Tuesday was D-Day. The D stood for Dravan, the all-time favorite.
A word of advice, oh great boss,
Steve said.
I don't know what these guys were like out in Chicago, but around here, they'll stoop to just about anything, from all expenses paid hunting junkets into the Allagash in November to free bowling at family fun lanes in Bangor. I had one guy try to get me one of those inflatable Judy dolls. Me! I'm only a PA. If they can't sell you drugs, they'll drive you to them. Should have taken the Judy doll. Nah, she wants a redhead. Not my type.
Well, I agree with 𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠, Louis said, just as long as it's not like yesterday.